I go back and forth between, okay, well, I want to know what's going to happen and I want routine and I want things normal and whatever that means and the same thing. And then I'm like, no, I want change. I want change all the time. I don't want a pattern of things and I don't want things to be the same. And I don't like it when I'm constantly doing the same thing over and over. I am not a routine person. And yet, most days I think I would really like a clue as to what's next and what to do next and how to do the thing that I need to do next if I had a clue what the next thing was other than some of the just mundane, this is what you do. And this could very possibly be just me, but it would just really, I'm saying just way too much. It would really be nice to know that there's a pattern to events and situations and places we're going and things we're doing. And at the same time, I don't want the pattern. I want something different and something new. And if I have a routine, I want it so I can break it and mess it up and do something different with it, which I know sounds totally crazy. But I don't get security out of everything being the same. I find my security in change. I like change. I like it a lot. The more change, the more I can see it, the more I can do it, the more I can make it happen, the better, which I don't know if that's quote unquote normal, but then at this point, I'm not sure what normal is. I do know where I live right now, and maybe where you live too, the weather changes constantly. Last week at this time, it was really, really cold. And today it was almost 50. Tomorrow it's going to be 60. And it's January. And I'm okay with that. Actually, I love it because I'm not a huge fan of cold weather. And I really like warm weather. But it makes me think about seasons. And seasons follow one after the other. We don't have winter and then go right into summer, which then goes into fall, which then goes into spring. That would be all convoluted and messed up. And that's not how God created. That's not how he set the seasons in motion, set the stars, the moon, all the good things. That's not how he did it. But at the same time, there are these unusual breaks in the weather where we go from really cold weather to really warm weather. And it doesn't seem like it makes sense, except these seasons were, set into motion a really long time ago. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says there is an occasion for everything and a time for every activity under heaven. And I'm reading that from the Christian Standard. And that pretty much, if you follow through 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 9, 8, it lists out there's a time to give birth and a time to die and a time to tear down and a time to build. There's a time to weep and a time to laugh. So it lists out all of these things. And I get that. It's like there's a pattern to life. And when you look at it, there is this pattern that says it's time to do this and it's time to do that, or this is happening and that is happening. And the thing that's interesting to me is if you ever look at a piece of fabric or a piece of wallpaper or anything that has a print on it, what you're going to see if you look closely is it repeats the main picture or motif on the fabric or the wallpaper. And all it does is take this one section that was the original piece of art and it turns it different directions and back and forth and up and down, and it makes the pattern that is on the fabric or the wallpaper. That's how I kind of look at life, that there are patterns and we either repeat the pattern or we change the pattern. or we interrupt the pattern with something else. Maybe life is going along just fine, and all of a sudden you have a situation or a challenge or something that throws you, let's say, off kilter, and you go into an addictive lifestyle. Whether, maybe you go into an addiction, which would be maybe as simple as workaholism. That is an addiction, or shopping, or just constantly rehashing and rethinking everything you say in every event that happens. Then that becomes the pattern. And when that becomes the pattern, it shifts the rest of the healthy patterns or seasons that your life might be going towards. What if the pattern that you're in is healthy and life is good, and then someone close to you passes away and you go into mourning, which is completely healthy, and then you can't let it go, and you hang on to it, and you're constantly, for years, upset, and you have changed the pattern of your life from a healthy mourning pattern, being sad, being, angry, regretting, going through the process of mourning, and you end up making this mourning process, instead of going on for like 2 years, the rest of your life. And it becomes a pattern. And when that becomes the pattern for your life, you lose contact and in relationships and motivation. You lose the life God has given you because you are stuck in this pattern that's not healthy, and you don't even realize it. You just kind of slip into it. Another situation that might happen is you have an event and you get really angry, and you get angry to the point you can't let it go, and it's wrong and it's not fair, and it was not just, and you were done wrong, and you don't let go of it, and you maintain that anger. And that's an interesting thing in here where verse 5 says a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones. Now, I don't know exactly if that's what this is talking about. Honestly, I didn't really look that part up, but if I'm mad enough, I'm ready to start throwing rocks at somebody, I need to be gathering some rocks, going, wait a minute, if I'm throwing them, what's coming at me, and what do I need to pay attention to? But this is another pattern that you get into, and once you get into a pattern of this type of anger, you become bitter and resentful, and it spills over into the rest of your life, and there is no joy, and there's no happiness, and there's no place for peace. And so when I look at Ecclesiastes 3, that's a hard word to say, by the way. It reminds me that there are patterns and there are seasons to things, but we have to choose to go through both sides of the season. We have to be angry, and then we have to forgive. We have to be sad and mourn, and then we have to reconcile ourselves to, okay, but that's not the end of the world. This does not have to change me and change my life from now on, where I don't see anything anywhere but sadness and tears. Just like the weather right now, it's January, end of January. Last week it was really cold, like I said, and now tomorrow it's going to be 60. The next day it's going to be upper 50s. So it's almost like this is an interruption, and it's representative to me of there are patterns and there are seasons, and then there are interruptions within those patterns, like this weather, because I'm quite sure second week of February, we're probably going to go back to some cold weather again. But right now we have walked into or are walking into a week or so of warm weather. Not necessarily normal, not that it isn't normal. It's just the season and where we are. So what I'm saying is to recognize that even in a normal pattern of life, a normal season of life, we have to hold on to the stuff that is real and happening. I'm not saying, well, if someone close to you dies, just be happy and don't worry about it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying go through the grieving process. But I am encouraging that we recognize there is a season for grieving. There is a season for being, or a time for being angry when things happen that are unfair, unjust, whatever word you want to throw in there. But it doesn't mean we stay there. It means that we process, we understand, we recognize, and then we embrace the rest of the life that God has given us. So let me encourage you at this point. If you're in a season like right now where it's really warm and we're in the middle of winter, recognize whatever season you're in is not long term. It's not forever. It's just for a certain amount of time. It is that there is a time for every activity under heaven, just like it says in Ecclesiastes. And when we hold on to that, we recognize that seasons and patterns and days and times in life are changing, even though we think we've got everything set and we do the same thing every day and we've got a routine. Those routines get messed up. And that's okay, because the one thing that does not get messed up is God. And God is, first of all, He's eternal, as we know, but He's unchanging. He does not change with the seasons. He does not change with behaviors and situations that happen. He is unchanging. So when everything else in the world is changing and we're going through difficult times, we get to remember that He is unchanging. And He already knew this stuff was coming, and He already knows how to walk us out of it. So I hope the weather is warm this week where you are, because I fully intend to enjoy it.